Um, Gates. Gates is behind all this. A front man for the cult, yes, and very rich as a result. Um, but he's fronting this up, and he knows exactly what he's doing. This is not a guy who's been manipulated into doing something that he doesn't understand. This guy knows exactly what he's doing, and so will his wife, Melinda Gates, who operate this Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that is funding everyone that moves in this pandemic scam, from the World Health Organization down to the advisors to Boris Johnson, the advisors to Trump, like Fauci and Birx. And this is what his Melinda Gates' wife said. Bill Gates' wife, Melinda, reveals billionaire prepared for years for coronavirus pandemic. Well, at least she was speaking the truth there. Speaking to BBC Radio 5 Live and being completely unquestioned by the interviewer, no doubt, because it is the BBC. Do you know Gates funds the BBC? Yeah. He's put from the last accounts, something like £2 million into the BBC. Then he goes on the BBC and gets a free ride. Is anyone surprised? Speaking on Radio 5 Live in the BBC, Melinda Gates said she and her husband had been talking about the possibility of a pandemic like coronavirus for years and had prepared for the eventuality of having to move from their home. No, you prepared for what is happening now, justified by a fake virus that you knew was coming. It's extraordinary. This is a disease we're all in together. Oh yeah. Second richest person in the world, officially anyway, and his missus, are all in this together with people who've lost everything. And I'm going to stay with Ms. Gates, because I just want to show the synchronicity between her and her husband and statements by the World Health Organization that Gates owns. This is, first of all, we're back to Melinda Gates, unfortunately, but we are. Where she comes at, see, in Africa, there's been virtually nothing's happened, right? But they're targeting Africa. They want lots of chaos in Africa. In fact, what Gates's programs do, vaccination programs, and Robert Kennedy Jr. has exposed this in recent times. They use African children as guinea pigs for their vaccine trials. And they paralyzed extraordinary numbers of kids. And they've killed kids. And so this is what they do. Because Gates is a psychopath. He's utterly, completely evil. And my definition of evil is the absence of love. And Bill Gates is the absence of love. I ask you, look into his eyes. There's no life there. There's no, if you like, no soul there, no energy there. And there's a reason for that, which I'm going to come to in a book I'm just in the process of finishing. Anyway, this is what Melinda Gates said. Africa will soon have dead bodies lying on the streets, Bill Gates' wife has said. Why on earth, I say in the headline, are this pair of super rich prats, brackets actually worse, dictating global health policy? Well, because they're fronts for the cult. So anyway, this is the story. Microsoft giant Bill Gates' wife says the lack of testing kits in Africa is the reason why the continent's COVID-19 numbers are low, but soon Africa will have bodies out in the streets. I can't believe that this woman is such an idiot as to say that by mistake, or her husband allowing her to say it by mistake. According to Melinda Gates, who was speaking in a recent CNN interview, the virus will still hit Africa hard. COVID-19 will be horrid in the developing world, she says. My heart is in Africa. I'm worried. Well, let's find your frickin' heart first, mate. I see dead bodies in the streets of Africa, Melinda Gates said. So, immediately after, we had this from the World Health Organization. 3 million people could die from coronavirus in Africa unless the spread is contained, UN report warns. Actually, it's the United Nations, not WHO. But Gates and the cult absolutely own the United Nations. Of course, the World Health Organization is an agency of the United Nations. So anyway, 3 million people could die from coronavirus in Africa unless the spread is contained, UN report. As well, actually, no, it is WHO. I wasn't misremembering. It's the UN and WHO. Well, it would be. They're the same organization, basically. UN report warns as World Health Organization officials say the continent could be the next COVID-19 epicenter. And you see the coordination there in the propaganda line. Africa could see anywhere between 300,000 and 3.3 million deaths due to coronavirus, according to the UN Economic Commission for Africa. It warned that if the continent does not implement measures to prevent the spread of the virus, in other words, lockdown, then total infections could spiral out of control and reach 1.2 billion. But if intense social distancing measures are implemented, the number of total infection could drop to 122 million by the end of the pandemic. The first COVID-19 case in Africa was reported in Egypt on February the 14th, and since then there have been more than 18,000 confirmed cases. 18,000 in an entire continent, and they're not confirmed cases because there's no COVID-19, because they're not testing for it. And you see exactly the same scam being played on Africa as you are and have seen in the West, whereby you tell them that this catastrophe of numbers of dead are coming, and the only way to stop it is to lock down, shut businesses, take people's livelihoods away, and keep people 6 feet apart. It's extraordinary. And this announcement came immediately after Gates, Ms. Gates, came out with this prediction about bodies in the street in Africa. It's all coordinated. And Gates and his missus should both be in jail for the rest of their human life for crimes against humanity. And the jail should be crowded with these people. So the other, one of many other parts of this is the, first of all, catastrophic loss of jobs, employment and livelihood. It's just people have no idea, because of all the lockdown, what the world's going to be like when this, when it eventually eases. But another part of it is it's being used to create the Chinese-like surveillance state, China being the blueprint for what they want the world to be. So here we have from France, it's happening all over the world. France calls on Apple and Google, both cult organizations, to ditch privacy protections France has become the first country in the world to openly call on Silicon Valley tech giants to remove privacy protections in order to introduce a sovereign European health solution that would track the movements of citizens. I mean, could it be more obvious? What's going on? And then we have this, Facebook, another cult organization, fronted up by another cult gopher, Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook will start warning people who like or react to fake coronavirus news, and they define fake coronavirus news as anything at odds with what the World Health Organization says, which is Bill Gates. Facebook announced that it will start warning users if they have liked, reacted, or commented on harmful COVID-19 posts that the company has found to be disinformation and removed. So, they are deleting posts on the basis that they are at odds with the World Health Organization lies, and then they stop people commenting on the fact that they have been deleted. Mark Zuckerberg should also be in jail for the rest of his life for crimes against humanity. And it's all being coordinated. Have I said for decades, all these organizations are controlled by the same force, and that's why they operate to the same script. So we move to Australia. Prime Minister Scott Morrison hints that a tracing app could be compulsory for all Australians if fewer than 40% download it voluntarily. So it's voluntary, but if you don't volunteer, we're going to make it compulsory. This is how it all works. Mobile phone tracking software could be compulsory if not enough Australians voluntarily download the application to help in coronavirus case tracing. Scott Morrison says at least 40% of the population needs to use the app to make it effective. My preference is to give Australians a go at getting it right. In other words, give them a go at doing what I want, which my masters want, who I dare not question. That's my plan A, and I really want plan A to work. But if it doesn't work, they'll go to plan B, which is making it compulsory. Scott Morrison, this is the government that banned me from Australia for having a different opinion to these idiots. Thank you, God. Imagine if you thought the same. Here we have New Jersey police, which is an extreme version of the lockdown, are using drones to spy on citizens in areas patrol cars can't reach. Authorities claim the drones are not taking pictures or collecting evidence, but failure to comply with their orders could lead to a summons or a $1,000 fine. Even worse, the drones come from a Chinese company. Oh, you couldn't make this up. That sent similar drones across the country, and the Department of Homeland Security has warned that data collected on these Chinese-owned drones could be compromised and sent back to Beijing. But, of course, you see, this is just different aspects of the cult coming from different directions. You know, there was a story this week about America had given, I think it was about $3.3 million to this Wuhan lab. And it was like, what's America giving money to the Wuhan lab in China for? Well, because one arm of the cult that runs America gave the money to another arm of the cult that runs China. That's how it works. That's why they do it. There is no rational explanation for why, otherwise, the United States would give money to a Chinese lab that is developing biological weapons. There is no reason to do that, and every reason not to. But it's the cult paying the cult. Same with the 3 point and then a lot billion dollars that America gives to Israel every year for weapons. It's one arm of the cult giving $3.8 billion to another arm of the cult. This is what's going on. Well, why would they do it? Because it's the same cult, for goodness sake. And then there's this about the imposition of this social distancing, etc., where this writer is saying public shaming is nothing new, and neither is shaming others on social media, but now people have taken to an entirely new level by shaming those on social media who are violating social distancing rules. From Facebook to the community app Nextdoor, people have flooded social media platforms to criticize others who are violating public health orders. Some are, these are the software programs imposing the cult agenda on people who have half a brain. The social media platforms to criticize others who are violating public health orders. Some are complaining about their neighbors hosting wild quarantine parties, while others are disgusted by joggers panting on others. Experts fear the rise of the surveillance state is being ushered in by the Experts fear the rise of the surveillance state is being ushered in by the coronavirus pandemic. What do you mean you fear it? It's happening. It's we now have this massive situation, just like the Stasi secret police ran in East Germany, communist East Germany, where they get the population to impose the law on the rest of the population.